then the pain and the illusion will disappear again.
Are there Africans in this
We
room?
will never
Hello?
run. My African dream.
Anyone sing along?
There will be tomorrow. My African dream is a dream that we can follow, and we will see my home's illusion. My African dream is an end.
Our guest of honor, His Excellency Mr. Benjamin Mkapa, former President of the United Republic of Tanzania. His entourage, including the High Commissioner of Tanzania in South Africa, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, and members present. Professor Bani Pichana, yes, he's there. I can see him. Thank you, sir. I'm told you traveled all the way from London to come and be with us here tonight. Welcome. He's a former principal and vice chancellor of UNISA. Deputy Minister B. Martins of the Department of Public Enterprises, several directors general, I believe we have about 8 in the room, from government departments and other members of government that are present. Welcome and thank you for being with us tonight. Bishop Josie Oka, President of the South African Council of Churches and the delegation. Also Reverend Pataki, Secretary General of the South African Council of Churches and other members of the community. Ambassador Dumisani Khumalo, the CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. You are welcome. Other universities present. I'm very pleased to announce that tonight we have a 40-member strong delegation from the University of Pretoria. You need to hear a bit more about this delegation. This is the class of 2011 of the class that's taking the LLM on democratization and human rights in Africa. There are students from various parts of the continent who come and do the LLM at the University of Pretoria on a program that is co-run by 5 other universities on the continent. We are very pleased that they are with us here today. I believe we have a bus load from the University of Free State that has driven all the way from Bloemfontein to be here with us. You are welcome. The Africa Institute of South Africa, the CEO, Dr. Matlow, we are very pleased that you brought here tonight members of the delegation that are attending a conference that you are running from yesterday until tomorrow. This is a conference that you are calling the Scramble for Africa. And I believe that the entire delegation stopped their proceedings tonight to come and join us. I think this is great collaboration. Thank you and welcome. Other universities and institutes in South Africa that are present, amongst others, MISTRA, headed by Mr. Joel Nesitenza, welcome. IDASA, IGD, and others. Members of the business community, we are very, very pleased that you are with us here tonight. The media fraternity, and at this point, I need to point out the collaboration that we are enjoying tonight with SAFM. They are covering the event live. Doesn't get better than that. And later, we're going to have a question and answer session. So prepare your very wise questions, because you shall be heard on radio as you ask your questions. SABC Channel Africa is also taping the event. Unfortunately, because of their scheduling arrangements, they are not able to carry it live. But they are recording it, they will play it at the appropriate time. We are very pleased to be able to partner with the SABC in that regard. Members of UNISA National SRC and other SRCs from various universities in Gauteng, thank you and welcome. UNISA staff members, students, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this, the annual Thabo Mbeki Lecture 2011. How can I forget? We also have amongst ourselves leaders of political parties. Madam Mishwe of the ACDP Women's League and member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, please welcome. Madam Lindal Shope Mafole, leader of COPE in Gauteng and member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, welcome. We also have several former ministers in government present with us today. For example, we do have Mr. Aziz Pahad, former Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have Professor Alec Ewing, Ms. Togodi Diza, TMF trustee, student at UNISA, everything. Thank you and welcome. Tonight, like I said, is the second time that at the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute, we are hosting the annual Thabo Mbeki Lecture. We choose to host it on Africa Day. Last year, we hosted it on the 27th of May. However, today we are very pleased that it is taking place on the appropriate day, which is 25 May. Why is Africa Day important, do you think? Any takers? Why do we celebrate this day? Why do we do that? For those that don't know, Africa Day, celebrated on 25 May every year, marks the day on which the Organization of African Unity Charter was signed in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. On 21 June 1981, the OAU adopted the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. This year, therefore, marks the 30th anniversary of the adoption of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Okay. My team is passing me notes about people I should not forget to mention their presence. As we know, the successor of the OAU is the Africa Union. And we are very pleased and honored at the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute that our patron, as he was then President of the Republic of South Africa, played a very crucial role towards the adoption and the launch of the African Union in July 2002 in Durban, South Africa. The African Union is set up by all countries in Africa except Morocco. Those of you that follow international law would know that Morocco withdrew from the OAU in 1984 in protest against the inclusion of Western Sahara. South Sudan is expected to join and become a new state in Africa. And at this point, I think we'd like to also acknowledge, we really want to acknowledge the role played by our patron as the chair of the African Union High-Level Implementation Panel for Sudan, and for the work that they have done. So here we are. Today we've invited His Excellency President Mkapa to deliver the speech, the lecture, the annual Thabo Mbeki lecture here. And I'm sure you are all waiting in great anticipation about what he shall say tonight. But before we move on, I'd like to welcome to the podium the principal of UNISA, Professor Makanya, to come and welcome you as well.
To
Program Director, Dr. Maureen Tong, thank you very much. I would first of all like to recognize Dr. and Mrs. Thabo Mbeki, former President of the Republic of South Africa, and other members of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation present. Dr. Mkapa, former President of the Republic of Tanzania, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Professor Pichana, the former Principal and Vice Chancellor of UNISA, referred to him as RVC, Retired Vice Chancellor. Mr. B. Martins, Deputy Minister, Department of Public Enterprises, and other members of the government present. Bishop Suwoka, President of the South African Council of Churches, and Mrs. Suwoka. Reverend M. Pataki, Secretary General of the South African Council of Churches, and other members of the ecclesiastical community present. Ambassador Kumalo, Chief Executive Officer of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. Other institutes and organizations present, members of the business community, members of the media fraternity, members of our own UNISA executive and extended management, Mrs. Makanya. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. At the inaugural annual Thabo Mbeki lecture at the University of South Africa on 27 May 2010, former President of the Republic of South Africa, Dr. Thabo Mbeki, addressed the provocative question posed by the World Bank in 2000. Can Africa claim the 21st century? He proposed 6 practical steps that Africa must undertake if it is to claim the 21st century, asserting that that the first step will be to build and nurture the native intellectual cadre committed to the transformation of Africa, as envisaged by leading African patriots and thinkers in a period spanning some 150 years. He said, and I would like to quote him, "An urgent task in this regard is to rebuild and sustain our universities and other centers of learning, attract back to Africa intellectuals who have migrated to the developed North, build strong links with the intelligentsia in the African diaspora, and give them the time and space they need to help determine the future of Africa," unquote. And at the official launch of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the Thabo Mbeki Africa Leadership Institute, during an international conference themed Investing in Thought Leaders for Africa's Renewal, held in Johannesburg from 11 to 13 October 2010, the RVC of UNISA, Professor Bani Pichana, in addressing imperative for marshalling of Africa's intellectual forces towards the betterment of Africa, stated the following, quote, "The partnership and collaboration between the Thabo Mbeki Foundation and the University of South Africa in the establishment of the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute should marshal these intellectual forces and critical voices to Africa's betterment. This international conference should set an agenda that will draw Africa's intellectual resources, stimulate young Africans to become achievers, bristling with new ideas, and set the tone for a new positive inclination for Africa that honors its past, engages the present, and shapes the future," unquote. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute has as its focus the training of Africans for the political, economic, social, and cultural renewal of the African continent and its people, based in the first instance on the All-Africa policies already agreed through the OEU and the AU. It is a vehicle to enable Africa to respond on time to new developments which impact on the continent, which will also help to ensure that Africa's voice is heard in both the local and global contexts. Timali not only invests in thought leaders who will work to help ensure that adopted African policies are both accepted by the people and are implemented, but it also aims to generate new knowledge about Africa and Africa within the global context by holding focused seminars and conferences, as well as conducting research whose findings will be communicated expeditiously to Africa and the rest of the world. As a key stakeholder, not only in knowledge production through teaching, learning, research, and community engagement, but also in the creation of intellectuals and future leaders, the University of South Africa, with its significant footprint on the continent and globally, aims to ensure that it facilitates thinking in Africa, on Africa, by African scholars, so as to arrive at an African understanding that is acknowledged by our global society. UNISA believes that as Africans, we need to be confident about claiming our space and ascendancy in a global environment that is undergoing a fundamental reorientation, and in which the voice of the marginalized is sounding even louder. UNISA aims to make a direct and ongoing contribution to this country and this continent's intelligentsia, to our thought leaders, and to our leadership, and in so doing, to its socio-economic development. We are proud and excited about making that contribution. Tonight, as we've heard, is the second annual Thabo Mbeki Africa Day lecture, and we are deeply honored to be able to welcome to the University of South Africa so illustrious a gathering of African intellectuals. Africans whose individual and collective wisdom have both the content and gravitas to make a formative contribution to that which Timali and UNISA seek to achieve. We are equally honored to welcome those whose attendance attests to the hunger for the knowledge and insights that will be shared here tonight, and a willingness, one could even argue, an eagerness to take up the torch of knowledge that is being passed on and to use it to fan the flames of their own desire for intellectual growth and development, and for their own desire to contribute to the African voice and presences in the global arena. It therefore gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the University of South Africa. We trust that you'll leave here enthused and inspired to broaden your own contribution to Africa's intellectual voice and to a brighter future for all. Thank you.
Any dancers want to come to stage? I like that music. Could we proceed with it? Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Makanya, for that speech. Can I find out where Ms. Molebati is? Is she close by? Natalia Molebati? Are you there? Okay. As she prepares to come down, could I ask Ms. Kusum Kailan, the incoming chair of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation Board, to address us?
Okay. Good evening to you all. Thank you, Program Director, Dr. Maureen, Your Excellency, Benjamin Nkapa, Your Excellency, Thabo Mbeki, and Mrs. Zanele Mbeki, Vice-Chancellor Dr. Makanya and Mrs. Makanya, Excellencies, ministers present here, dignitaries, members of the media, students, staff of UNISA and Timali, all my friends who are here tonight, whom I've invited here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, and colleagues from the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. On behalf of the patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, His Excellency Thabo Mbeki, and members of the board, it is indeed an honor and pleasure to welcome you all this evening to the second Thabo Mbeki Annual Africa Lecture, and a special welcome to our honored guest, His Excellency Benjamin Mkapa, to this annual African lecture. Dr. Makanya has given you some background to Mali and introduced the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. I'd like to say just a few words. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation was launched in October 2010, and one of its main objectives is to develop a cadre of leaders in Africa who will rise to all the challenges that you heard our former President Thabo Mbeki on the screen earlier on, to rise to those challenges that we still talk about in Africa, which we have not been able to succeed in addressing these issues. For instance, poverty, human rights, human dignity, governance. You travel around Africa and you see there's so much of lack of governance, not only in governments, but also in the private sector, in the institutions, in civil society organizations. Lack of transparency. And of course, with all that, the key issue of job creation is neglected. The foundation also, the vision is to assist the institutions to create paradigm shifts in the minds of the people who are decision makers in Africa. We as Africans have a responsibility to the continent. We would be failing in our responsibility if we sit here year on year, and we do not address the issues that are being repeated on a daily basis. That is why I would like to not plead, it's not the right word. I would like to say that every individual that's here today, or whether you are representing a foundation, or governments, or institutions, or whatever, in whatever capacity you are here today, you should make a difference in our continent. I think it is appropriate that our address today by our honored guest is entitled Consolidating Political Independence with Economic Transformation. If you go through the continent of Africa, you would see that many of its economies are rebounding from the crisis faster than the rest of the world. Africa is increasingly viewed as an opportunity rather than what one of the journalists many years ago called it a burden or a basket case. It is rising rapidly up the agenda of global investment managers, and it's talked about as never before, never in my lifetime. It's talked about in almost every big financial center around the world. Yet, much of the basics remain the same. The latest annual review of the African Progress Panel concluded that in spite of Africa's recovery, growth remains of low quality and is not accompanied by the much-needed structural transformation and diversification, and therefore not able to create the jobs needed. I would like to say that we as Africans born in Africa have a responsibility to address these issues. And that is why I'm very pleased, as the incoming chairman of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, to use this as a vehicle to address the issues that former President Thabo Mbeki raised and some of the issues I raised this evening. The road will not be smooth for all of Africa. We're talking about nearly 48, 50 countries in Africa. But in almost every sector, demand outstrips supply. The potential for Africa, or parts of it in Africa, is becoming a significant driver of global economic expansion in the coming years. I think it's up to us to make it happen on the issues that we are so concerned about. With these few words, I welcome you all again on behalf of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and I look forward to today's annual African lecture. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, Chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Madam Kusum Kalian. I give now the opportunity to our poet. I believe she'll do her thing from up there.
And whenever language is not enough to silence the sirens of oppression, we resist through how we still persist on homes who refuse to end one issue, so that whenever talk is snatched from our lips or hips or the mountains of our minds, whenever talk is snatched from our lips, silence also pours a hush, hush, but understood tone into the hearty crossroads of prayers that we travel, that is silk, gestures that we mix, and breathing carved higher than any horror that wills to murder a people's history. Because today, because today, silence is louder than taking itself to the grave. It is unsealed like the ones who gave names to the song of this very day. So I greet you, Dumelang. I greet you, Dangadef. I greet you, Jambo Sana. I greet you, Nimangwanana. I greet you, hello. I greet you, traveler, warrior, journey people, hello. Welcome to these pages. These are the stages on our journey, so hello. Okay, you don't want to say hello. I will say goodbye. I will meet you at the corner. I will find you at the fringes and at the crossroads of our prayers. I will see you at the center of our forming, so hello, traveler, warrior, journey people, hello. I greet you, traveler, warrior, man troubled. Hello, journey woman, trying into the limitless sky in pursuit of the other side, in pursuit of dreams, in pursuit of roots, in pursuit of truth. Hello, traveler, warrior, journey people. What are your foundations? Because I too, I am searching for my formulations. I am searching for truth. I am searching for roots. I am searching. And if any of you traveler, warrior, journey people ever get to the other side, tell them we were made. We were made. Yeah, we were made. Tell them we were made. Tell them we were made of flesh and blues. Tell them we were twisted into flesh and loss and lies. Tell them we were woven into flesh and long tapestries who hold us up when we can uphold ourselves. Tell them we were made of flesh and love. So hello, traveler, warrior, journey people, I greet you. Dumelang. Ke dumedisha wena le wena ke go tamisha wena wa dinokana tša go tšhelela mawatle-watle wena wa ditšhabana tša go ama dithabathaba wena o thomišitše tema le kgono mešomo ya gago e go eteletše pele ke re tama sebata ke re dumela wena le wena le wena Dumela. Ndizawuza kuwe. Ndize ndinjalo. Ndize ndinje. Ndize ndizama ndicinga neqhinga lokuqhuba nantsi ngqola. Ndize ndizabalaza ndidinga nemeko yokuqhuba nantsi ngqola. Kaloku molo. I greet you because we are everyday people in the world, left alone, left behind, meet again, encounter new traces. We are every link in the chain of humane attempts. We are mahogany, peach, hazel, brown coated. We are so similar. We think we're strange. We meet in unfamiliar wash places. We meet on the dance floors and battlefields of life, moving towards the wind, towards the waiting sun. We wait to capture yesteryear in our clenched fires so that when we get home, we can tell it like it was raised with melodies from where we've been. Because our comings and goings begin on the scarred palms of our very hands like Bapo, Mohawk, Baganda, Vanyai, Mapoche, Maori, and Tsitsistas. We who are so similar, yet so close. We who are known by the moon as those who meet at the backyards of life and on casual walkabout. We gather at midlands and backwoods that enrich us, everyday people in the world. We who are so similar, thinking we're strange. We meet in unfamiliar dance floors and battlefields. We meet by chance and we grace the world. We who are known by the moon as those who meet at the backyards of life and on casual walkabouts, we gather at midlands and backwoods that enrich us, everyday people in the world. So I greet you, and you, I greet you. Hello.